to episode 3 already of Beside Ourselves, a podcast of AI adoption in business. My name is Rutger. I'm a fractional CMO based in the Netherlands, living close to Amsterdam. Next to me, we have Giles, a fractional CEO from the UK, and we have Theo, a technology consultant based in Germany. So, morning, guys.
Morning, Rutger. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Happy New Year.
I hope you have
Happy New
a
Year.
solid Christmas break. Happy to have you back on the podcast and working together again. And of course, all the best wishes also for the new year, also to our listeners. We hope you'll have a great year ahead, both professionally and personally. So today I'm going to set the timer again for 20 minutes. Today's topic is being introduced by Giles. So Giles, over to you.
Thanks, Rutger. And yeah, morning guys and morning everybody. So yes, today's topic, slightly different one this time. I'm going to take a really big topic and try and condense it down. So I guess this one comes from the angle of sustainability. Similar how we talked before, I've seen, in fact, pretty much every conference I've been to, technology conference I've been to in the last 12 months, there's been talk about and even in the mainstream media these days are pulling it out. You see articles here in the UK and the BBC, the Guardian, all sorts of places around the, I guess, environmental impact of AI. We all know that the tech giants, they're building these huge data centers, across the globe, and cramming more and more compute power into these things. A lot of them are sort of completely automated now. But the actual strain that puts on the local power grids, particularly the amount of water they're consuming, is going off the charts. And, that's having a real kind of impact from an environmental perspective. Alongside that, you've obviously got businesses of all sizes, small and medium enterprises, right up to the large corporates that obviously are looking at their sustainability goals, their greenhouse gas emissions and stuff like that. I guess particularly for SMEs, who would be our main sort of target audience, or people we work with maybe more on a day-to-day basis. There's a lot of pressure being put on by their clients and stuff to sort of commit to certain environmental aims as well and stuff like that. So I guess the whole eco thing, the greenhouse gas impact of stuff, and the way technology plays a part of that is coming to the fore in a lot of businesses there. So then there's this kind of quandary where there's this kind of drive to say, well, we know we want to use AI to improve our businesses and make us better, but we're also aware that there's a potential negative impact of that as well. I pulled out a few kind of facts as well, just to kind of give us a bit. I know you could pull these out from everywhere. Ireland's a good example. We know, from the dot-com boom onwards, I've got a large number of data centers for the European cloud systems. A lot of the cloud companies are headquartered over there as well. But they're talking about, at the moment, those data centers are guzzling about 1/5 of the country's electricity, and that's predicted to increase to 1/3, and that's putting a lot of strain on their environments. That's it globally. I think they're saying that data centers equate to about 1% of the world's electricity, but again, that's going to go up, particularly in the developing worlds, and they're saying this could account for about 20% of growth in electricity demand by the end of the decade. You get different feedback from the AI providers when you ask them. Some of them won't even talk about it. Some of them will have a conversation, but obviously give you the normal stuff. I think Sam Altman recently said that he sort of claimed that a sort of ChatGPT query used a sort of similar energy to running a light bulb for a couple of minutes, which I guess doesn't sound a lot, but when you think about the millions and millions of people that are using it, and then you also look at people like Google, who 90+% of the world's search traffic goes through their system, but obviously they're now injecting generative AI into that in the results page. So even if you're just not using the tools, you are using the tools, and they're around there as well. So, so I guess the general question is, what should SMEs think about when they are, looking at adopting AI, but they also want to be having a nod towards the sustainability impact that brings, both to them as a business and also to them to the sort of larger society, I suppose. So that was my general premise for the discussion. I realised I've just probably consumed about 5 minutes of our 20 minutes. So before I give you my thought, I'll just throw it open and see what you guys think on that.
Well, Giles, I have a question on that.
Go on.
What is your opinion in terms of like visibility of the resources that AI is using? Because I think the companies that use AI, it's still like it's of course a hot topic in terms of like especially on the energy side. But I would say like the customers of those companies don't see that because they use the AI internally. How do you think that companies can, how to say that, like work around these type of like dynamics? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think there's two things, because I said the bigger questions around, the environmental impact of a business, their own greenhouse reporting and stuff like that. And this is no disrespect, but most employees aren't generally thinking about that. They're thinking about their work, their day-to-day tasks and stuff. So that, there will be teams or groups within the business. There might be a whole sustainability team. It might just be an individual who's, reporting responsibilities, or director who's got responsibility for that, as I've had in previous businesses that are thinking about that. But generally it's not in everybody's sort of wheelhouse to worry about that from a day-to-day perspective. And that's no fault on them. They've got a job to do and stuff like that. I think where it is important, or where it can start to impact, and it may be skewing away from thinking about sustainability to actually thinking about, and this comes back to stuff we talked about in the last couple of podcasts as well, and this is going to be a repeating theme. It's about proper selection of providers. So you're looking at the providers as a business you're selecting, asking the questions. I know, trying to understand, well, where are they coming from? Because when you come to the greenhouse gas going, those are the kind of things you're going to have to answer. It's like, well, who's providing your compute power? Where are they gaining their energy sources from? I know, for instance, AWS here in the UK, I was at a conference a year or two ago, I'm not sure where they are on that, but we're driving to say that actually 100% of their power consumption was coming from renewable energy sources. Being able to answer questions like that and say, well, okay, we're choosing cloud provider. We're asking the right questions when we're making technology choices. But also, I guess the broader question around AI is actually not just using AI for AI's sake. We know that AI consumes more power than other sort of more traditional, I guess, what you want, technology sets. The difference between doing take aside now that Google have injected AI into their search results, but the difference between asking Google a question and asking ChatGPT a question, there are very different. So it's about educating people about using the right tools for the right jobs, and as a broader business about selecting the right tools for the right jobs. So yeah, that's kind of, I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And to elaborate a little bit on that, I think there might be an opportunity also for companies to provide some sort of like compensation programs to their energy consumption, let's put it like that, or other resources. I've seen like larger enterprises have more like they connected to the brand in terms of like being sustainable, their ecological footprint and all of that. How do you think this will? How to say that? Like how could SMBs take these type of like initiatives as their benefit in this particular context?
Yeah, well, let me add something here, because I think it's important to mention that different companies will be able to use AI in different ways. And AI, obviously, being a generalist technology, it comes with environmental costs, what we call a footprint for sure. And Giles mentioned quite a bit of an impact it can have. But it can also have what is called an environmental handprint. It can help us, it can lend a hand, if you like, in optimize the grid, create opportunities in terms of saving energy. Yeah, International Energy Agency, put it this way, that there is this tension between all this electricity, all this energy that the data centers that power AI need to deliver in the next 10, 20 years. And the fact that AI will help us find efficiencies both in large-scale projects, but also marginal improvements in the way that we use energy to deliver this energy just from the savings, right? Now, it's not going to solve climate change, right? I don't think it's that kind of technology, but we should not forget about the positive impact it can have. And for some companies that specialize in energy, that are in the energy sector, this will be an enabler. So let's put that aside for a second, but it is important to say that there is, the other side to the coin. The second thing that I want to mention here, based on your question, Rutger, here, is that we need to break down the issues. So it's not this monolithic technology that it just consumes energy, that just sucks energy through the data centers. There is nuisances. There's nuisance here. For one thing, we're moving to a space where energy is needed more for inference, so using chatbots and using AI rather than training the models, which is where the focus has been in the last few years. So the more that we scale out, the more that we get adoption, the more that SMEs and individuals and companies use AI, the higher the energy requirements will be there. And when it comes to inference, so using a chatbot, using an agent, using AI, different parameters come into play. So for sure, picking a provider is a big question, but an even bigger one becomes, how do you use it? How do you train your people to use it? What parameters you give them, and also whether you make environmental impact part of the brief that you give to your technical team to implement AI. Just to give you two examples over here, it takes an enormous amount more power to create a video with AI, 10 seconds of video, than it does to power a text query. You need to tell your people, to economize, if you like. Just because it's free in terms of cost does not mean that it is free environmentally to create a 10-second video. It consumes an enormous more power than a text query. And from a technical perspective, when you put down a system, it is a lot cheaper, if you like, to use deterministic programming, to classical coding, where it will do, and to marry it up with probabilistic AI coding when that will create benefits. So you need to balance both too. I think that the main thing that I want to bring here, that I want to conclude that thought, is that just because it is free, it doesn't mean that it is environmentally free. And both in using AI and setting it up, you need to take these factors into account.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
Rick. I was going to say, no, that they're all great points, and I think, just picking on your point there about, there is that world where AI sorts climate change for us, and let's all hope that is the case, or it helps us on that journey. Plus, there's the flip side that AI replaces IT systems that are inefficient in themselves. So again, you can see there's power gain. So there's a whole kind of there, but I think completely agree that I think it comes back to, I think there's so much about the use of AI that is obfuscated from employees. Like as you said, you chuck something into ChatGPT and it gives you an answer. Now, but what models are you using to drive that answer? Because the simpler models are obviously less power hungry than the more in-depth reasoning models that we see now, which are great. But again, it all comes back to choosing the right tool for the right tool for the right job. I think we might have said it in the last one. Just because you have a hammer doesn't mean to say everything looks like a nail. It's actually, okay, well, what do I need for this? And it's, when should I use AI, or when is it appropriate for me to use AI, and when is it not? And when I am using AI, what is the most appropriate type of tool to use within that thing? And it all comes back to training and education and stuff like that. Sorry, Rutger, I interrupted you.
No, I definitely like your thoughts. And I think there is an important thing to mention here too. It's like on the efficiency gains delivered by AI. And this is, of course, can really rely on what type of business you are. But I can imagine even like the connection to the human world in terms of like logistics or travel, if you optimize those type of like components, you don't have to travel anymore, or logistics become more efficient. I think you also have a huge impact on the carbon footprint as a business. And I think it's important to connect the dots between those type of like efficiency gains, and this can also be on the energy consumption side, versus using more energy to actually get there by enabling an AI?
A point of optimism for me is I think in 2026 we're going to see many more AI agents being delivered, and of course this is a big focus for us professionals in the digital and AI professionals. And there is things that we can do with agents that will allow us to inject that nuisance, that kind of control, to the end of saving energy. To your example, Rutger, on traveling, probably the most typical example of for AI agents is that you get a booking engine that kind of goes out, looks for different flights and different accommodation options, and then goes ahead and makes a booking. Well, cost obviously will be a parameter, but so can be your environmental footprint. So if you're using an AI agent to book travel, then environmental footprint could be a parameter that you give it, and that could be something that if everybody does, could help us optimize things. And you can actually see it in the future where, for example, flight scheduling, airlines might be able to adapt it because everybody's just trying to be just a little bit more environmentally aware. On the other side, on the deployment side, Giles mentioned the best tool for the job. That's where agents can come in, and you can say, when I'm orchestrating an agent, instead of kind of going to an LLM for everything, which uses a lot more power, use a small language model for this particular piece of task that I need to execute. So for us as professionals, it can become a very exciting playing field to use all these tools. And to the question of today is to make sure that environmental parameters is always on our mind. I think that our clients in small and medium enterprises will feel increasing pressure to show that they're taking these considerations into account when they design and when they design the systems and when they're showing the staff how to use it.
Yeah, and I think to that, I completely agree. And I think, that the sort of development in the agentic space, I think, is going to allow us to do that. And it all comes, it's going to, in the same way with, I guess, solution design, information security and all that kind of stuff has become, default and is part of the conversation. I think that kind of the environmental impact, I think, is going to be part of that as well. And exactly as you say, I think in the way I talked about before about the choice of tool being obfuscated, or actually at the moment people are just throwing stuff into the tools and they're not really actually, by creating those processes, by creating those agentic tools, then that's actually going to allow the engineers who are designing those, or the people designing those, to kind of almost preempt to make those choices and make them as efficient as possible. So yeah, no, they're great points.
Great. So we're running out of time almost. We have 3 minutes left. A key question to you both, actually. I was wondering, what would be your number one advice to businesses, how to respond to these type of, I would say, one perspective of energy consumption or carbon footprint by enabling AI? What would be your advice how companies could deal with this challenge?
Do you want to go first there, or shall I? I realize I've talked a lot, so
That's
okay.
all right. I'll go first if
Go
you want to. I would probably say that, with AI, more than classical solution architecture, deployment is harder than development. That is a given. We see that a lot. The tools to create a pilot, to create a quick application with AI are readily available. They make life a lot easier. But getting the right quality of data, getting the right governance, getting all the considerations, all the safety considerations around what you're trying to build is harder. This is where environmental footprint comes in. In operationalizing or deploying AI, environmental considerations, using the right tools for the job, small language models when you need to, putting the parameters in place to make sure that if there is a real world impact, that it should be as environmentally friendly as possible, should be something that you should put in your value statement. So when you're designing a system, of course, you're going to look into safety by design, hallucinations, making sure it's not manipulative, it's not sycophantic, it's actually creating value rather than anything else. But also in there, that it has got a wider responsibility to other factors like the environment being one of them. So I think that the summary of the advice would be: think really broadly when you're deploying AI about the responsibility of this system. They are going to be very powerful, probably more powerful than your website and a lot of the applications. And thinking about the wider considerations, the wider implications of what you're building as early as possible would be a good advice.
And I guess from my side, it would be, I guess I didn't want to premise this question or ask this question to everybody, trying to give another barrier. I think most businesses are already thinking about this sort of stuff. Most businesses have already got sustainability statements, environmental policies and that sort of stuff there. So actually just continue to ask the questions you do of all your suppliers and all your existing choices. So make those informed choices. For those that aren't, now's a good time to start doing it, because if you're not doing it already, you will be doing it probably this year next, because your own customers will be asking. So I think it's just more, to me, it's about just going in with your eyes open and actually just, asking the questions of your suppliers and just factoring it into your kind of solution design. If you don't know where to go, most of these companies have stuff on their website, even if they're not as transparent as they could be. But as Theo says, it's then about education and about how you then ensure your staff are using the right tools for the right jobs. And that all becomes back to training and, having a decent plan for how you're going to adopt and adopting the right technologies, be they are or not, for the right problems. So that would be my takeaways.
Those are great points, both. So thanks for sharing. I think I agree on that. And also to elaborate a little bit on it, I think the transparency between resources being used versus connecting them to the benefits is an unsourced field, also in marketing, in terms of being transparent about that and how to say that, proactively share what type of actions you take to leverage AI in terms of benefits, but also be transparent about the costs, at what cost, let's put it like that. So amazing points here. And the timer went off, so we ran out of time. But before we wrap up, we got a question about our last episode, which is really nice. Thanks, Charlie, for sharing. And the question, last episode's topic was really about how jobs are being affected by AI adoption. And the question is more around the topic that we discussed, the fact that juniors rely heavily on AI, and where we discussed the point of could they ramp up faster in senior roles. And the question here was really about the risk of producing outputs of those juniors without properly learning the underlying tasks. So what are your thoughts on that, Giles?
Cool. Who asked the question? Sorry,
It was Charlie.
Charlie. Oh, well, thank you very much, Charlie, for the question. It's great to know somebody's listening. So yes, so juniors. Yeah, so we did talk about the impact that we felt that it would have, particularly on junior roles. I think we talked about it in the context of that pathway into a career that the wheel benefited from, where you come in as a junior and you cut your teeth, I guess during the more sort of menial, sort of, I guess from my side and Theo's side, coding jobs, but again it applies across pretty much all sectors. And I think the premise we said was that we felt that a lot of those tasks that juniors would have done are the ones that are very likely to be taken over by AI. And therefore, it means that people coming, and that's not to say it either introduces a barrier to get in there, or it requires people coming into the marketplace to almost have built those capabilities and understanding before they get there. So again, I'll talk in the context of software development, because that was my background. Are you going to have a situation where, rather people coming in at a junior level and then, cutting their teeth and working under some more senior developers, and then obviously moving up the career ladder that way, are they going to have to come in at that higher level? And I think, so I think what Charlie's question was around juniors relying too heavily on AI. I think the point I would say is I don't think it's necessary that juniors relying too heavily on AI, because I think actually roles or careers will use AI more and more. I guess it's actually the fact that those junior role people are going to be coming in at, I guess what you would argue would be a more what we would currently describe as a senior role. So they're going to be coming in and they're going to be using AI to generate the code from a software engineering perspective, but they therefore need to have that understanding of the code to be able to identify the issues. So whereas when I started my career, I would be writing code, I'd have an inherent capability myself, but there'd be a senior above me who might be doing code peer reviews, checking what I'm doing, providing me support and guidance. The junior, when they come in, is almost going to have to be doing that themselves from the word go, because they're going to be doing that to the AI. So I guess the point we were trying to make was it's not necessarily about them relying on AI, because they will do, but they're still going to have those inherent sort of skills around software development so they can understand and check what it's doing, to actually, be sure that actually it's doing the right thing. I don't know if that answers his question or not. Theo, have you got any thoughts? Come on, you must have some.
Yeah. Oh, thoughts galore. I will say that the question is so good and so interesting, and it invites so much conversation. I'm going to keep my thoughts for now and just basically say for the three of us, we should schedule a podcast on that question, specifically on how we learn and how we bring up juniors, because the conversation is much wider than just software development.
Yes.
It touches schooling, education at every different level. The bigger question being, do our tools help or impede our learning as we go from junior, even professional and senior education? How we pick up new skills when a new technology comes in that takes out some of the friction of learning, of doing some stuff. Does that help us get to the next stage faster, or does it slow us down? Because as the question said, there is value in that friction. So I think that it is there's lots and lots of unpacking here, and I think that we should make a point to kind of have a follow-up episode on this one.
Well,
I like it a lot.
I feel a whole podcast series coming on that one. But yeah, no, it was a great question. Thank you, Charlie.
But I think that's also like the overarching thing. There are so many nuances in the discussions around AI adoption. The topic we covered today, of course, as well. Like it's really about like resources consumed is like the hot topic, but there's so many attached to that, where we can create plenty of podcasts about, which we're definitely gonna proceed with that. Yeah. Room for thought.
Yeah.
So thanks, Giles. Thanks, Theo.
Pleasure.
We ran out of time. And thanks, Charlie, for the question as well. Thanks for listening to everyone. Also, if you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them at the podcast. We will review on a weekly basis. And we will be back next time. I'm looking forward to that both. Talking to you again, different topic, the same type of like energetic engagement. I'm looking forward to that. So thanks for listening and see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers, everybody. Bye.